From a portal that can win entire games to an ultimate that completely prevents people from shooting. Marvel Rivals tank characters have some extremely confusing abilities. So, to make your life easier, we've compiled every single tank ability in the game, showing you tricks, advice, and even hidden features you didn't know about. Even if you don't play tank, I promise watching this video will make you a way better player than you were before. With that said, let's get started with Captain America, who has a base health of 650. The main function of his kit is his shield, which is a 400 health circular shield. It can deflect projectiles, although it does it at random. This does not apply to beams, like Cloak's primary. If the shield breaks, there's a 5-second penalty, and the average recharge time for any health loss is 50 per second. While Captain America's main weapon, Sentinel Strike, is a melee type weapon that does 40 per hit. Next is his primary ability, Leading Dash, which is a run ability similar to Black Widow's. However, while running, you can use his other primary, Super Soldier Slam, which allows him to launch forward in a designated zone, knocking enemies up and dealing 30 damage to each one. It has a 12-second cooldown and the maximum jump speed is 20 meters. You can see where you'll land before using it, and his secondary ability, Liberty Rush, is a quick charge ability that does 30 damage on impact. This also has a 12-second cooldown. And lastly is his Vibranium Energy Saw, which can ricochet similar to that of his primary. However, this ability has an 8-second cooldown meant to do large amounts of damage in a group. It can bounce between enemies, doing about 70 damage per hit, but reduces by 20% on each hit. Captain America's ultimate, Freedom Charge, is fairly easy to understand. It's a buff ultimate that buffs him and creates a small AoE that buffs allies that walk into it. When used, Cap will gain 150 bonus health and grant allies 100. Every single second afterwards, he will gain 110 and grant allies 60. Additionally, he and his allies get a 30% boost in movement speed. This ult is great for initiating fights or even saving fights at the end of them. The energy cost is 3400. Next, we have Doctor Strange. He has 650 health. His main abilities that a lot of people use him for are his shield and ability to fly, as well as his portal, but we will get to that. The shield has 800 health and charges at a rate of 80 per second. Additionally, if you try to fly while holding the shield, it will let it down, so be careful when doing this as there's a 1-second delay on the shield. However, his main attack is a single shot 5-round projectile, with each pellet doing 18 damage, so you can do roughly 100 damage if you hit all 5. But there is a damage fall off, starting at 10 meters, stopping at 20. So it's better to shoot at larger targets or closer targets, because you want to hit as many of these as possible. The reason for this is because the more damage you do with this primary, the more his dark magic meter will build, indicated by a number near your crosshair. This meter is better to build higher because his later ability, Maelstrom of Madness, does more damage with more charge. Maelstrom of Madness is an ability that launches an AoE attack, releasing all of the dark magic in his meter. However, be careful, as once the meter hits 100, it will activate his negative passive, the Price of Magic, which will cause you to get a 3-second debuff that prevents healing on yourself. But don't worry, you can release this dark magic to do damage with his next ability. All you need to know is that each point of dark magic does 1.3 damage. So a full charge can do 130 in a full AoE, meaning you can hit everyone around you for 130 damage max. This does reset his meter fully. Additionally, a bit of a tip, the more dark matter he has, the brighter his cape will shine with a purple pentagram. Lastly is his portal ability, Pentagram of Farala, which has a shockingly long cooldown time of 180 seconds. But it makes sense, because the ability is very cool and it allows you to create a portal and not only shoot things through it, but also walk through it while still being able to place it quite literally anywhere. Regardless, it's great for flanking and taking aggressive off angles. Using this can get you some seriously busted plays, while the actual portal itself lasts 20 seconds. This one's pretty easy to understand. The Eye of Agamotto is a 3-second stun. It's called Soul Separation, but it's really just a 3-second stun that does 60 damage. The stun applies to anyone around him with 10 meters. There is a charge up time and you can be stunned out of it, so use it wisely. Also, fun fact, you can damage the soul that separates. So during this ult, the enemy technically has 2 hitboxes. For some reason, a lot of people don't actually know this. AoE damage is much more effective with this ult. The ult cost is 3400. And next is Groot. His kit's pretty simple. He has 700 health and his primary fire, Vine Strike, does 70 damage. It takes 0.7 seconds to fire, and it cannot critical hit, but it's strong enough to nearly 3-shot most characters, so you can burst down most characters in 2.1 seconds, give or take. His secondary fire, Spore Bomb, is a small projectile that does damage once it hits someone or hits the ground. It does 55 damage on impact and shoots out 6 spores that do 10 damage each. This is a great way to get finishing kills, as his normal range is extremely limited. His melee has special properties, however, where he can strike twice normally, with his third strike launching enemies in the air. Next, we have Groot's main abilities, his walls. His Thornlash walls, which are on his left shift, can be placed within 15 meters of Groot, and each wall has 250 health. Additionally, these walls have 2 charges, and each used charge takes 6 seconds to refresh. He does have a wall cap of 3 walls, so if you have 3 up already and try to place a 4th one, it will not work. These walls also have a hidden ability. When Groot is near any of his walls, they get a status effect called Awaken. The Thornlash wall specifically will attack any enemies near Groot's walls that attack him or his team, doing 60 damage twice per second. Plus, the walls do not break unless they are damaged, and there is no clear time indication. While his next wall, Ironwood Wall, is larger and has more health, with 700 HP. While awakened, this wall will give Groot bonus health based on the damage that he or his allies deal. So, any enemy that Groot damages will give Groot 40 bonus health, up to 250 total. It has an 8-second cooldown and a 10-meter range, with his passive being the ability to awaken the walls. His ult's pretty simple. He throws out a ball of vines that will tie anyone hit with it into place, dealing 10 damage from the initial ult, 70 damage from the AoE, and 20 damage twice a second while in it. This ult lasts 3.5 seconds and has an ult cost of 2800. Hulk. He has 3 forms: his human form, his base Hulk form, and his ultimate Hulk form. Starting off with his human form, he has 200 health, and his only weapon is his gamma ray gun that does 16 damage, can critical hit, and fires 5 rounds per second. His only other ability while in this form is his gamma grenade, which does 40 damage on impact and launches enemies up. Word of advice though, try not to use this when your enemy is a higher health, as this will make it harder for you to hit them since your weapon is a projectile. You could end up accidentally giving your enemy time to kill you by launching them, so only use this if you have to, or can finish them with it. The only goal for base form Bruce, however, is to do enough damage to charge his ultimate to change back into normal Hulk. Once you do transform into Hero Hulk, however, this is where your main kit comes into play. His base attack does 40 damage, and you can attack roughly twice per second. And apparently, it is an AoE spell field, so you could potentially hit more than one person. But both enemies would have to be directly next to each other within 4.5 meters, so it's quite unrealistic. While his right-click Gamma Burst has an 8-second cooldown and does 70 damage that can pierce through enemies. Additionally, his primary ability, Radioactive Lockdown, does 5 damage but stuns anyone hit with it for 2 seconds. The trade-off, however, is that no one else can really damage them. You can, however, hit them by using his normal attack or his right-click. His secondary ability, Indestructible Guard, generates shields for him and any allies surrounding him. The shields last 2.5 seconds and the cooldown is 12. The shields have 250 health, and any damage that these take are generated into Hulk Smash Charge, which builds to his ultimate. Lastly is his jump, which lets him press and hold his jump key to increase the distance at which he can jump. The longer he holds it, the further he can jump, indicated by a blue arrow that appears while holding. Hulk's ultimate is just a 3rd form pretty much. When you are Hero Hulk, you can ult to turn into Monster Hulk. Your health will be 1400, but you have a small charge up time when using it. However, when you do attack enemies, they will fly. And since Hulk does melee damage primarily, if you aren't careful, you're going to knock the enemies away from you, only making it harder to kill them. Also, you can press Q again on a single target while in this form to grab an enemy and just beat the shit out of them. It does 5 hits with 40 damage each. You also can't do anything else while in this, and you cannot cancel allies. Although you do get a 30% damage reduction while doing it though, which is pretty cool. The energy cost is 3400. Magneto is a Vanguard hero that has a base health of 650. His main attack does 35, but spawns small AoE fields that do 40 damage at its center. His main function, Metal and Iron Bulwark, is the ability to create shields on himself or allies. Regardless of who he puts it on, it has a 2.5 second duration unless broken, and also has a 300 health. However, if it is broken, for every 100 damage it takes, Magneto gains 1 ring. These rings can be used with his right-click attack, which releases the rings, doing 40 on the first ring, 65 on the second, and 90 on the third. So it rewards saving them for more damage. His second ability, Metallic Curtain, has a 100 energy resource that blocks any and all projectiles for up to 2 seconds because it consumes 50 per second. However, there is a meter that determines how much time you have left. There's a 3-second cooldown and the recharge speed is 11 energy per second. Lastly, his passive, which lets him descend slowly like hella. Magneto's ultimate, Meteor M, is pretty confusing, so I won't explain all the technicalities. All you need to know is that it's a sphere projectile that pushes Magneto into the air when used and will soak up any and all projectiles shot while it is up. This includes other ults that shoot projectiles like Star-Lord's ult. It does more damage with each projectile for a max damage increase of 800, starting at 100 when initiated. It has an energy cost of 3100. Penny has a base health of 650. Her primary fire is a rapid fire projectile that does small AoE damage. The base projectile does 15, while the splash AoE also does 15. It fires 3.33 times per second, and her secondary fire, which is her right click, is a web that stuns the enemy for 0.7 seconds upon hit. Additionally, this next ability isn't really a passive, as all her abilities say this. Regardless, Penny receives a 25 healing per second buff while in the cyber web. Additionally, any healing that would push past her max health will turn into bonus health. She also gets a 25% movement boost while in it. Next is the main use of her kit, the Bionic Spider Nest, which spawns 2 spider drones every 3 seconds. Each one does 40 damage, and they can stay around, meaning until this nest is broken, they do not disappear, unless used. The nest has 350 health and has a 15-second cooldown. Next are her arachnomides, which have 4 charges, with each one taking 4 seconds to recharge upon use. They do 100 damage, and the AoE does not have fall off. So if the mine goes off, if the enemy is in the radius at all, they are guaranteed to take 100 damage. Her secondary ability is her Cyber Bond, which is essentially a spider web that attaches to things. She can use it to pull herself up to places or away from them. However, if she ventures too far from its placement zone, it will trigger a pullback. It's on a 3-second cooldown. Lastly is her wall crawl, which, you guessed it, lets her crawl on walls. Penny's ultimate, Spider Sweeper, is an ultimate that combines everything else into her kit. Essentially, when she uses this, she can run around dropping mines, webs, and spiders behind her. It's a great area of control ultimate. She attacks once a second, but drops spiders and mines every 0.7 seconds. There is a 7 mine cap though. The duration is 12 seconds and the sweep damage is 60, which again happens once a second. She gets 450 bonus health on use and a 70% movement boost. It's not fully clear on if this stacks with her yellow webs, but it doesn't specify, so I'll assume it does. The energy cost is 3,400. And then next is Thor, who has a base health of 500 and his main weapon Mjolnir does 45 damage every 0.6 seconds. When awakened, it also launches lightning, but we'll get to that in a second. While his right click ability throws his hammer and it throws slower than it returns. But on the throw it does 70 damage and 35 on its way back. His primary abilities are as follows. He has a chargeable dash that does 40 damage on no charge and 60 on full. Additionally, it does consume 1 Thor Force, which is shown in the middle of your screen. While his next ability, Awakening Rune, consumes 3 Thor Force and allows Thor to awaken as mentioned earlier. It grants him shield and bonus health as well, with it lasting 5 total seconds. However, the 200 bonus health he gets only stays for 2.5 seconds. So if Thor takes no damage, he will retain the max bonus health before it starts ticking down, starting at 2.5 seconds, and will decrease over time until gone completely. Additionally, Thor's hammer does more damage in this state. According to the official website, it does 70 projectile damage and 30 damage per person within his spell field. So if you're right up on enemies, you can finish them fairly quickly. His last primary ability, however, is Lightning Realm, which lets Thor erect a small field around him that does 40 damage when touched and gives Thor some of his Thor Force back for each enemy hit. It has a 12-second cooldown and does slow enemies that are within it by 30% for about 4 seconds, which is how long the field lasts. Lastly is his passive, Thor Force, which activates the 200 bonus health and allows you to instantly refresh Thor Force by landing a bash. Each bash you land cuts off 5 seconds from the total recharge time of all 3, according to the official website. Thor's ultimate, God of Thunder, is an AoE strike that is shown to both allies and enemies. When he uses this, he launches himself into the air. The spell field does 40 damage, and when Thor lands in the spell field, it does 220 damage. The ult lasts 1.5 seconds and has an energy cost of 3,100. Next is Venom. Venom has a base health of 650, and his main weapon, Dark Predation, allows him to attack enemies about once per second. However, in this 1 second window, he fires about 3 hits, and if he hits every single headshot, he can basically kill a support in 2 fire intervals in a melee. His right click is a slow that activates by attaching tentacles to a nearby enemy. The initial damage is 5 and slows the enemy by 15%. However, if the enemy stays near you, this will activate a second attack that does 80 damage after 3 seconds. However, if the enemy leaves Venom's 11-meter distance, the link will break and he will not get the damage. So if you're facing a Venom and you see him use this, run away. His 2 main abilities are Venom Swing and Frenzied Arrival. Like Spider-Man, he can swing on an 8-second cooldown, although Spider-Man's is less. Again, turn Easy Swing off, it'll be harder to master, but it's going to be so much easier to avoid hitting walls and putting yourself in a bad position. Then his secondary ability is the Frenzied Arrival, which lets him dash while in the air to land down quicker, doing 65 damage at the center of impact. It has an 8-second cooldown, and the slam distance is 40 meters while airborne. His last 2 abilities are his passive and his E ability, which is technically a secondary ability, although although his secondary is symbiotic resistance. It's a bit complex to explain, so I'll explain it this way. The more health you're missing when you use this, the more bonus health you will gain. It converts all of your missing health into bonus health, meaning if you're at 25 HP and you use this, you will gain 775 HP if your max is 800. His health does change by season, so keep in mind this will change in future updates. And lastly is his passive Alien Biology, which allows him to climb on walls, and not only climb on them, but run on them. So you can use this to get some tricky movement. Venom's ult, Beast of the Abyss, is pretty simple. He digs into the ground and becomes an AoE field. The ult gives him an 80% movement boost that both teams can see, and he can wait for the ult to end or click to use it and end it immediately. Once he does, he will do a flat 50% of any enemy's health, as well as 40 damage. Additionally, any damage dealt, including to more than one enemy, will convert into bonus health. Its energy cost is 2800. Well, that should have you covered on all of the abilities. If you want more videos like this, smash like. If we get 1,000 likes, we'll make more informative guides like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.